When it comes to mind-altering drugs, certain images might come to mind. A kaleidoscope of colors, the swinging 60s, counterculture. But recently, substances like LSD have made a long, strange trip themselves, right to the forefront of medical research. Doctors now think hallucinogens could help those with terminal diseases. Sounds revolutionary, but as you're about to see, psychedelic drugs have actually gone back to their roots. Here's our colleague from Radio Canada, Frederick Zalak.
Pamela Sakuda is 59. She lives near Los Angeles with her husband, Norbert. Last year, she received some terrible news.
I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic terminal colorectal cancer. And at the time, we didn't know when or how the disease would progress.
We had gone from being extremely satisfied with our everyday existence to being devastated. I can't, even now, I can't really conceive of a life without her.
You worry about what is coming down the road to you, to your family, to all the plans that you had made. The most immediate effect is you don't know what plans you can make anymore.
In facing her terminal cancer, Sakuda became understandably anxious. She sought help from psychiatrist Charles Grobe of UCLA. He offered her psilocybin, a hallucinogenic drug found in magic mushrooms, but not for a short-term high. He thinks a single dose can change how she deals with stress in the long term.
We're not treating the cancer per se, we're treating the secondary anxiety and the depression and the demoralization. If you look at the research data from the 60s, we'll find that there were a number of investigations of utilizing psychedelics with end-stage cancer patients with very impressive outcomes.
Research on psychedelic therapies started in the 1940s, soon after Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann made a stunning discovery. Hofmann synthesized lysergic acid, creating LSD. In April 1943, he consumed a small dose to assess its properties. Going home on his bicycle, Hofmann saw his surroundings bend out of shape. He thought he had lost his mind. Hofmann not only discovered LSD, he opened the door to an unexpected form of therapy.
Hofmann felt these compounds held tremendous potential value to alleviate suffering, that they could be very, very effective tools in the hands of physicians in medicine and psychiatry.
In the 50s and 60s, hundreds of peer-reviewed studies were published. Some scientists thought psychedelic drugs might be useful in treating alcoholism and drug addiction.
There is a group of powerful new chemicals which affect man's mind like nothing man has ever known.
Scientists in Saskatchewan and British Columbia were at the forefront of worldwide research on LSD. Over 1,000 patients went to the Hollywood Hospital in a Vancouver suburb, including singer Andy Williams, actor Cary Grant, and Robert Kennedy's wife. For many, a single LSD dose changed the way they saw themselves and helped them stop their addiction. The treatments were supervised by the late Dr. Ross McLean and his assistant, Frank Ogden, now 85.
It was their perception of themselves, and it was very noticeable when you gave them the mirror, because they saw themselves as others saw them. Lots of times when they held that mirror in front of their face, they would see themselves laying in a gutter.
It amplifies sensory experience. It provides an enhanced capacity to appreciate aesthetics of nature. It might allow one to venture deeply into their own unconscious mind and explore their autobiographic history and perhaps come up with some insights.
roughly, round figures, 1/3 of the alcoholics that we treated just once never had another drink in their life, with 5- and 10-year follow-ups.
One LSD dose was thought to be more effective than years of psychotherapy, encouraging results in a field where conventional medicine couldn't offer much. But psychedelic treatments were also highly controversial. Dr. Ewan Cameron from the Allen Memorial Hospital in Montreal conducted research for the CIA in the 1950s. His patients were submitted to horrible brainwashing experiments with electroshocks and LSD.
Clearly, it damaged individuals who were treated, and I think in many respects it soured governmental authorities on supporting, funding, and even approving projects in the future.
The LSD craze escaped the labs and entered university campuses across the West. Authorities clamped down by banning hallucinogenic drugs and the research that went along with them.
An unfortunate casualty was that psychiatric and medical investigators who were really pursuing development of valuable new treatment models were forced to stop their work.
After a 30-year freeze, Dr. Grobe felt it was time to reinvestigate these drugs. He headed to the Amazon, where certain psychedelic drugs were never banned. He studied ayahuasca, a hallucinogenic tea used by South American indigenous people. Grobe followed 30 individuals suffering from various addictions. Half of them were given ayahuasca.
Many of these individuals had problems with chronic alcoholism, drug addiction, antisocial behaviors, and after their exposure to ayahuasca and their very profound experiences, the individuals I interviewed had had transformative life experience and became highly functional. Their alcoholism, drug addiction, sociopathy appeared to entirely remit.
When analyzing blood samples, Grobe made an astonishing discovery. Ayahuasca seemed to give users a higher number of serotonin receptors. Serotonin is a mood-regulating chemical produced by the body. With these results in mind, Grobe headed back to the US, determined to conduct controlled studies. It took years to convince authorities, but Grobe finally got approval to use psilocybin to treat anxiety in terminally ill patients. Sakuda was the ideal candidate for this experiment. During one session, she took a placebo. During the other session, she took psilocybin.
You first start to notice a little physical difference. You start to feel a little tingling physically, a little different. And then you start to feel maybe emotionally a little different.
She did great. She did wonderful. At about the 4-hour point, her tears, I witnessed tears flowing down her face, and so I really didn't know what was going on, so I asked her when it was time to check in what was going through her mind, and she said she was thinking about her husband and how difficult it would be for him when she died.
I could feel myself crying, and the tears were flowing. I had the eye mask on, but it wasn't from sadness or grief. It was a release of energy, of emotion, and a feeling that I began to see other more positive ways of looking at my situation, at my present life. I'm so worried about what's going to happen in 6 months that I'm making myself miserable now. What a waste. I mean, I'm letting fear of the future mess up the present. And that was a real epiphany. It was like, oh, okay, I could change that.
After the 6-hour treatment, her husband noticed a remarkable change.
She was not in distress to the degree that she had been prior to receiving the medicine. And this didn't just last for a day, it just didn't last for a week. It's been ongoing, it's been continual. She just is a different person than she was prior to the treatment.
Psychedelic drugs are still controversial, but they are regaining interest in the research community. Last January in Basel, Switzerland, 2,000 people gathered for the 100th birthday of Albert Hofmann, the inventor of LSD. Hofmann still believes his discovery will be useful for medicine.
My name is Charlie Grove.
Grove discussed some of his early results. Other scientists attended, including a team from Harvard studying peyote, psilocybin, and MDMA, better known as ecstasy. They are assessing their effects on depression, post-traumatic stress, and cluster headaches.
This field desperately needs more research. It's time we get back to it because we may very well have at our disposal, highly efficacious treatment models, even for individuals who do not respond well to mainstream treatment.
A year after her treatment, Sakuda received more bad news. Her cancer has spread, and doctors are giving her 6 months to live. But she says the one dose of psilocybin had a lasting effect on her outlook.
For a long time, I think I've been able to maintain that view. We've done a lot of things in that time. We've traveled. We've done a lot of things socially. We've attended a lot of things. We've just lived a very full and rich life.
If large-scale studies confirm these results, the psychedelic drugs that wooed a generation might make a comeback, but this time in the doctor's office. Frédéric Zalac, CBC News, Vancouver.
One final note on our story, Pamela Sakuda died in November. She was 59.